In the quiet nights of the small neighborhood, where streetlights glimmer on the empty streets, I always feel something strange. Everything looked normal, but deep in my mind, there was an indescribable feeling of insecurity. I remember clearly the first time I felt it. One night as I drove home after a long day of work. The road I walk every day as a habit is still quiet. My headlight shined, illuminating every shade of tree along the road. The night sky, clear and peaceful. The stars sparkle. But why do I feel like someone is watching me from behind? Especially as I approached a turn where the streetlight had long been broken. I slowed down the car, a bit uneasy, but when I looked through the rearview mirror, I didn't see anyone standing there. However, the strange feeling did not let me go. My heart was pounding. I could feel my own breathing, as if something wasn't right. I had to keep driving, trying to forget that feeling. But every time I drive past it, I feel a cold breeze running down my spine. The next day, when I tried to share my story with a coworker, he shrugged and said it was probably just people wandering around at night. But I knew that what I saw wasn't anyone normal. I still can't forget the image of the man standing there, with his eyes missing, and invisible darkness covering his face. It's like a stain on my mind, indelible. Every night when I drove through that area, I struggled to push these thoughts out of my head, but they always come back, like ghosts that cannot be chased away. Even though the streetlights have been replaced, the cold feeling has not disappeared, and I began to wonder if I had seen something beyond normal understanding, or if it was just physical exhaustion, hallucinations that I had created for myself. But then one night, as I was driving through that area, I found myself unable to shake a strange feeling. Even though there was no one there, the silence in the air made me feel like someone was watching my every move. I couldn't understand why, but as soon as I passed there, I clearly felt the coldness and fear spreading from my heart to my whole body. I began to wonder if it was a foreshadowing of something bad to come. A week later, I started experiencing strange things happening every night. It started with the music in my headphones emitting strange whispers, voices calling my name. I thought I was just tired, but the sound was really clear. From inside the headphones, I could hear a voice calling my name, as if it were right next to me. Even though I tried testing the phone, everything worked fine. But that sound still did not disappear. This feeling lasted all night. Even though I turned off the music and even took off my headphones, the sound still didn't stop. It kept repeating my name, so consistently that I couldn't ignore it. Ultimately, I don't know if what I experienced was real or just a product of my imagination. But one thing I am sure of is that the memory of those sounds and that indescribable feeling still haunts me forever. Every time I step out at night, I still feel like there's something strange waiting for me in the dark, and that strange sound still rings in my ears. It was something I couldn't explain, something I couldn't escape, couldn't ignore. My story is not over, and I don't know what will happen next. I will continue to live in the shadow of that fear, but one thing is certain. Every night, I will not be able to escape that strange feeling. Were these the whispers of another world, or just my mind reflecting my deepest fears? The answer is still unclear, and I can't stop wondering if I'm the only one experiencing this. Please join me in continuing to search for answers in the next parts of this story. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the next parts and share this story with your friends. Have you ever experienced such a strange thing? Please leave your opinion in the comments section. A few days after that strange event, I no longer dared to walk at night like before. Every time I prepare to go out, there is an overwhelming feeling of fear inside me. But my job still requires me to go out at night, and I can't just give up. One evening, after a stressful day at work, I was driving home. However, this time, I decided not to turn around the turn where the previous event happened. Even so, fear still follows me every step of the way. Every time I drive through familiar roads, I feel like someone is standing next to me, watching my every move. Not a normal feeling, but a very real feeling, as if someone wanted to say something to me but couldn't. That night, I decided to drive through that road again, just once. But instead of quiet, I felt an upheaval in the air, something indescribable. A cold feeling enveloped me, I looked in the rearview mirror and I found myself enveloped in that gaze again. The gaze of the man from that night, but this time I didn't just see an invisible figure. I saw something else, a shadowy shadow moving, though not clearly. Who? And why does it feel like I'm being watched? That shadow made me unable to get away, even though I tried to slow down and look at that place. Strange sounds still echo in my head. I couldn't help but wonder if I was being haunted by something invisible, or if I was the one creating all of this in my mind. That strange feeling still cannot leave me. While I have tried to ignore and forget what happened, they still haunt me, like an invisible monster lurking in the dark. The following nights, I continued to hear that voice, not through headphones anymore, but live, coming from somewhere in my room. I remember very clearly, one night, as I sat in my room, the lights flickering, the air in the room stuffy, I heard my name called. This time, it wasn't a sound from any device, but from a low voice, almost a whisper, speaking from the darkness. That voice rang out clearly, as if someone was standing right behind me, gently calling my name word for word. My heart started pounding, my legs trembled. I turned around, but no one was there. There was no sign of any movement. I tried to check all the windows and doors, but they were all closed. However, the feeling of someone standing in the dark is still present. It was like an inexplicable presence. An invisible force was surrounding me. I pulled out my phone, trying to check if there were any messages or notifications, but the screen only showed an eerie silence. That voice, even though it didn't come from a device, continued to echo in my head. And from there, I began to realize something even more strange. This voice not only called my name, but it seemed to be talking to me, knowing very well my thoughts and feelings. When I couldn't bear this feeling anymore, I decided to visit an old friend who used to live in this neighborhood before I moved. We sat and talked for a long time about the changes in the area, but the conversation quickly turned to the strange things he had experienced while living here. He talks about old houses, never before told stories about the spirits in the neighborhood. Pay attention to old houses, he warned me. Many people have heard strange noises, seen figures in the night, and can't explain it. Maybe something happened there, and it just hasn't left. Those words made me feel uneasy. I can't stop thinking about what I went through. Was this neighborhood truly haunted? And what I sensed was just the reflection of souls not yet at rest. Finally, after a long sleepless night, I decided to go out. I want to find out the truth, want to know if I am haunted by inexplicable things. I drove back to that neighborhood. The quiet road was still waiting for me. I stopped the car and stepped out, breathing in the night air, and suddenly I felt a cold feeling inside. When I turned to look, I saw a figure standing at the end of the road, facing me. I walked towards it, and the figure gradually became clearer. It was the man I met before, the one without eyes. But this time, I don't feel scared anymore. There was something that made me want to understand the truth about him, and why he appeared in my life. I moved closer, my heart beating fast. As I approached, I realized that this man was not a ghost or a hallucination. He is someone who used to live here, and his story is related to strange events that happened in the neighborhood. He's not who I thought he was. And then, when he opened his mouth, I understood the truth behind what I had gone through. But that's a truth I can't share, because if I did, the fear I would feel would be greater than anything I had ever experienced. This story is not over yet. Do you dare to continue down this path, where secrets and fear await you? Ghosts that have never been released, strange sounds from the darkness, and invisible presences are still lurking. This story will not end here. Stay tuned, knowing that when you look into the darkness, you may never know what you'll actually find. After the night I met that man again, I felt like everything in my life began to change. There are no longer simple strange feelings, but a constant, overwhelming fear that is difficult to escape. I began to feel the presence of an invisible force watching me every minute, every second. One night, I came home late, tired from work and sleepless nights. I went into my room, locked the door, but I still couldn't get rid of the feeling that someone was near me. The lights in the room flickered, as if someone was playing with the light switch. When I turned to look, I saw the darkness in the corner of the room begin to move. A shadowy shadow, unclear shape, as if a person was standing there, only without a face. I tried to calm myself down, thinking it might be due to extreme fatigue, but the cold feeling it brought was undeniable. I stood up and walked closer, but when I reached towards the corner of the room, that darkness disappeared as if it had never existed. The cold feeling still lingered in the air, making it impossible for me to breathe evenly. That strange feeling didn't just stop at my house. Every time I go out or come home from work at night, I always feel a pair of eyes following me from behind. The shadows of the trees along the road, the houses casting long shadows in the streetlights, all seemed to be waiting for me, as if something not human was lurking in the darkness. One night, I decided to stop at a roadside cafe, just to escape the strange feeling that was surrounding me. But when I went inside, I saw a man sitting in the corner of the shop, his eyes looking straight at me. Even though I didn't recognize him, there was something in those eyes that made me feel uneasy. He didn't say anything, just sat there, his eyes cold and cloudy, as if waiting for something. I couldn't take my eyes off him, and I felt like there was a strange connection between us, though I didn't understand why. When I was about to get up and go out, he suddenly stood up and walked out of the shop without a word of greeting. I still remember clearly, even though I couldn't see his face clearly. His eyes were still imprinted in my mind, and I could feel a cold breeze running down my spine. After these strange events, I approached an elderly woman in the neighborhood. She has lived here for a long time and is known as a person with the ability to sense paranormal things. She looked at me with worried eyes when I told her what I had been through. She told me that I was not the only one experiencing these strange phenomena. "You're not the first person to encounter these things," she said in a gentle voice, but with an underlying seriousness. "This place has seen many unexplainable things. These old houses, they carry untold stories, souls not yet at rest." She told me about previous tenants who had also heard strange noises, seen shadowy figures in the dark, and even felt the presence of spirits that could not be seen with the naked eye. The stories she told made me shiver. Could what I am experiencing be a sign of some invisible force trying to contact me? One night, as I was driving through that neighborhood again, I felt a strangeness in the air. Everything around was normal, but there was something that made me unable to escape the feeling of fear. Suddenly, I saw a man standing on the side of the road, his empty eyes looking straight at me. This time, I didn't feel fear, but strong curiosity. I stopped the car, got out of the car, and approached the man. He didn't move, just stood there, motionless. As I got closer, he started to move, slowly turning to look at me. And then, from his mouth, I heard a gentle whisper, "I've been waiting for you." Those words were like an opening to a truth I had never mentally prepared for. He is not an ordinary person. He is not someone I can understand. And then, he began to walk into the darkness, disappearing like a ghost. I stood there, in the middle of the night, unable to understand what had just happened, and the cold feeling in my body rose again, this time stronger than ever. This incident does not stop at calls of names, ghosts, or warnings. I don't know if I will ever see that man again, or if I will be able to live peacefully in this neighborhood anymore. But one thing is for sure, every night, I feel those eyes, that voice, stalking me, reminding me of inexplicable things. My story may have ended, but for me, it never really ended. And you, do you dare to face the darkness and those calls? After my bike accident, I couldn't stop thinking about the man who helped me. I tried to imagine how he disappeared after I came back to thank him. It was the strangest thing I've ever experienced during my time living in this house. Although I felt grateful for his help, there was also a vague fear that appeared every time I remembered that moment. I returned home with sore arms and knees, but when I took off my helmet, I saw strange black stains on the rim of the helmet, stains that didn't look like normal blood. I thought it was just oil stains or dirt from the ground, but an inexplicable feeling arose within me. When I washed the hat, the wash water became cloudy, and pieces of black material began to emerge. The strange smell from the hat made me unable to ignore it. Something's not right. This feeling, as if I was encountering something that didn't belong to this world, became stronger and stronger. The next day, I decided to return to the area where I fell, hoping to find some trace to explain the strange thing. My friend helped me bring the bike home, but I still felt uneasy. I returned to the place where I met that man, the empty lot that I remembered so clearly. When I got there, I saw no one, no sign of presence. Still, I couldn't get rid of that strange feeling, as if someone was watching me from afar. I walked around the area, looking for signs that could explain everything. I looked at the dense weeds, but nothing stood out other than an eerie silence. When I returned to the station, I kept thinking about that man and what I felt during that strange encounter. At this moment, my mind was reeling with a series of unanswered questions. Why did he help me without saying a word? He knew I needed help, but why did he disappear so quickly? I returned to my house, but as soon as I entered, I felt a change in the air. The hallway light was on even though I made sure I turned it off before I left. I went to the living room, the closet door was wide open, and a few of my boxes were mixed up, like someone had opened them and looked through. But the strange thing is that nothing was lost. It was all just common items. The feeling of being watched rose strongly within me again. I couldn't understand why the strange things kept happening, no matter how hard I tried to explain them rationally. These events had no obvious connection, but they were beginning to disrupt my peace of mind. After I told my colleague everything and invited him to visit the house, I couldn't help but worry about the signs I had discovered. He didn't notice anything strange, but I still felt unsafe. The tension increased and I felt changes in my body. I couldn't concentrate on work, and nights of restless sleep left me feeling exhausted. One night, I woke up and heard a strange noise outside my bedroom door. The sound of breathing, soft and steady, like someone was standing out there, watching me. I can't bear it anymore. That feeling is so clear, so real. I tried to open the door, but when I got out, the hallway was empty. No one was there. Deciding I couldn't delay, I started packing my things. I know that I cannot continue to live here, where everything seems to have no explanation. The signs and strange events were enough for me to realize that this house was not a place I could stay long term. Although there is no clear evidence, I feel this invisible presence haunting me every day. I decided to move no matter the cost. Strange encounters and unusual signs made me feel like I couldn't continue to stay. But there's one thing I can't explain. Even as I prepare to leave, I still can't shake the feeling that someone or something is watching me. These events will never let me go, and this house will always be part of a strange story that I will never forget. Story: dim light and whispers in the night. That day, I felt like everything around me changed, even though it was just a small change. I work in an old building, a place where I never thought anything strange could happen. It was an old commercial building, a building where even the people there just passed by each other without a greeting, just silence. Most of the floors were empty, with only a few people, each living in their own world. I clearly remember the first day when I walked into my office. The room was at the end of the hallway on the 8th floor. My window overlooked an abandoned building and an untended plot of land. The fluorescent lights on the ceiling hummed as if trying to stay alive. The floor was covered in dust, and the air in the room was cold. As if no one had cleaned it for many years, no one paid attention. My job is mainly reports and administrative work. Everything is very boring. I feel nothing but loneliness. The mornings I arrived early, left late with no one to talk to. The building is just me and the silent walls. However, every time I go home, I feel like something is wrong. Although no one said it, I felt the cold in that space, a strange cold that could not be explained. And then one night, when I decided to stay out late, something happened. I was working on an important report, and the light from the fluorescent lights gradually became weaker, but I was used to them, so I didn't care much. Everything was still silent, only the sound of the air conditioner and the sound of the keyboard resounding steadily. Around 8 p.m., I felt hungry and decided to go find something to eat. I passed through the hallway, which I had never paid close attention to before. The strange feeling made me stop. Suddenly, I heard a door slam at the end of the hallway. I quickly turned around, but didn't see anyone. There was no one in sight, and the entire hallway was quiet, as if I had just misheard. But that's not the case. I heard it clearly, the sound of the door slamming, echoing throughout the building. To dispel the feeling of anxiety, I decided to return to my office and try to continue with the unfinished work. But everything has changed. Just a few minutes ago, I felt like everything was fine, but now I feel a presence in this building. The lights seemed to fade, the sound of the air conditioner stopped ringing, and the air seemed to stop. I tried not to think about it, but the silence in the room made me feel like something was lurking. My breathing seemed to become rapid, and I began to think of the stories I had heard about old buildings, abandoned places, where old memories still lingered in the air. But I'm not someone who gets scared easily, I told myself. A few hours passed, and I heard the door again. This time, not in the hallway, but from outside my room. I stood up, walked out of the room, and walked towards it. A strange urge made me follow the noise. I didn't know why, but I kept going, even though my mind was wondering if something was actually going on in this building. The vague feeling gradually became clearer. I can't get over the fact that I'm not alone in this building. Someone was there, and I was the only one who could feel it. As I approached the hallway, I saw a figure flash in the distance, just for a brief moment, but enough to make me feel my heart pounding. The feeling of anxiety haunted me with every step. Every time my footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway, I felt like something was watching. I tried to convince myself that I was just stressed from working late. But when I walked through an empty door, I heard a murmur like the sound of wind blowing through the cracks, and it seemed to be getting louder and louder. I can't ignore this strange feeling. I walked faster, not daring to look at the doors, just afraid that I would see a figure suddenly emerge from the darkness. The dim light from the fluorescent bulbs seems not enough to illuminate all the hidden corners of the hallway, creating a mysterious and cold space. Suddenly, I stopped, my heart pounding as a shattering sound rang out from one of the nearby glass windows. The sound of broken glass did not seem to come from an object falling. It's like someone broke it on purpose. I walked towards it, my heart beating harder. My steps seemed to be muffled in this heavy air. As I approached the window, I noticed it wasn't actually broken, but there was a long crack extending from the top corner to the bottom. And the strange thing is, these cracks do not seem to be caused by external forces but appear on their own, as if some invisible force is gradually cracking the tough glass frames. I stared at it, an uneasy feeling rising inside me, as if someone was looking at me from the other side of the glass. Trying not to panic, I turned around and continued walking toward my office. But I realized that the space has changed. The atmosphere seemed stuffy, making it difficult for me to breathe. I told myself that I was just imagining things, but I couldn't deny that I felt the presence of something unusual in this building. When I returned to the office, I saw that my desk had been moved. It wasn't a small shift, but it was pushed aside, creating a gap on the floor. I stood there stunned, my hands cold when I saw strange scratches on the table, as if someone had left traces of impact. I hurried back to check my computer, but everything was still the same. The computer screen lit up, but a strange feeling passed over me, as if everything was being monitored from somewhere. I glanced at the clock and realized that it was almost 10 p.m. I really felt insecure, and this building felt even more like there was some supernatural power existing in every brick, in every rotten wall. Unable to bear it anymore, I decided to go out to calm the strange thoughts in my head. I entered the elevator, but as the door closed, I heard a noise from somewhere behind. It was a quiet, very small breathing sound, as if someone was standing near me, but I couldn't see who. The lights in the elevator flashed and dimmed, and my heart pounded again. When the elevator stopped on the ground floor, I rushed out without looking back. I want to escape this building as soon as possible. It feels like someone is chasing me. But when I got to the parking lot, I saw an old car parked nearby, with a dim light inside. A strange feeling rose within me again. I can't breathe. I stopped, my palms sweaty. I had the feeling that this car had been parked there for a long time, even though there was no one in the car. I walked quickly towards my car, not daring to look back. I felt like someone was standing right behind me. That feeling made me unable to bear it any longer, and I rushed into the car, locked the door, trying to regain my composure. But when I put the key in and started driving out of the parking lot, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw a shadowy figure, standing still in the same spot, where the car had just been parked. I couldn't see clearly, but I was sure something was looking at me. When I got home, I closed all the windows and doors. I felt my whole body tired, but my mind couldn't sleep. The strange images from the building kept repeating in my head, making it impossible for me to close my eyes. I told myself it was all just my imagination, that I was too stressed from work and late nights. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the dim light from the fluorescent lights in the building, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me from afar. The next day, I returned to work, but my mood was still very heavy. Every time I walked into that building, I felt like something was wrong. Strange noises, strange scratches, and the feeling that someone was there with me made me unable to calm down. I noticed another figure in the hallway, but when I turned around, there was no one there. Am I haunted by unexplainable things? Or is there really something strange about this building? I don't know, but I'll have to find out no matter what I face. With each passing day, the strange feeling in the building grew stronger. I tried to convince myself that this was just a product of my imagination, but in reality, the more I tried to deny it, the more clearly I became aware of the presence of something inexplicable. Not a ghost, but an inseparable feeling. I no longer felt safe entering the building where I had previously spent so many hours working in peace. That night, as I sat alone in my office, darkness enveloping the building, a sudden noise rang out from the end of the hallway, the sound of metal rubbing against each other. Then the sound of light footsteps sounded, seemingly approaching. A cold feeling spread from the back of my neck to my whole body, as if I was being watched by something invisible. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked out. The hallway was quiet, only the sound of my footsteps and the buzzing of fluorescent lights on the ceiling. I looked towards the end of the hallway, where I saw total darkness. Suddenly, the light from a nearby fluorescent lamp flickered strangely, as if it wanted to turn off. The air became stuffy, and I felt like someone was near me. A feeling of insecurity rose within me. I looked around, didn't see anyone, but I could feel the presence. A soft sigh from behind startled me. I turned around, and suddenly, in front of me was the blurry figure of a man standing quietly in the dark. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I felt a coldness from him. "You? Who are you?" I tried to speak, but my voice was stuck in my throat. The man didn't answer, just stood there, his eyes piercing through me, as if looking at something I couldn't see. My heart beat harder. I couldn't stand. It felt as if my legs were becoming heavy, and I couldn't move. Even though I knew well that no one could stand in the dark without making a sound, that man remained silent. A feeling of fear rose. I felt like my body was frozen, unable to move. After a long while, the man began to walk forward. Every step he took seemed to be imprinted on the ground, making strange noises like soil and rocks rubbing together. He came closer, and when I looked up, I realized that he had no eyes. Where his eyes should have been were only hazy voids, a deep darkness. As soon as I realized that, the silence shattered and I rushed out of the building. I can't look back. It felt like someone was chasing me in the dark and I didn't dare turn around. My hair stood up and I felt a cold wind sweep across the back of my neck. I ran all the way back to my car, not once looking back at that building. As I got into the car and locked the door, a soft sigh reached my ears from somewhere behind. I drove away in a panic, not knowing what I had done wrong or what was really going on. Everything became blurry, and nightmares still haunted me in every sleep. I couldn't escape the feeling that something was watching me. Not a ghost, but a cold and invisible presence, something that had long occupied that building. The next day, I decided to go back, but not to work. I need to find out what happened in that building. I cannot live forever in this fear and doubt. I cannot continue to let myself be haunted by an invisible ghost, not physical, but a terrifying presence that still lurks in every corner of that space. When I entered the building again, I felt my heart being squeezed. Everything is silent. There was no one around, but every step I took seemed to awaken something sleeping in the darkness. The cracks in the wall, the hum of the light bulbs, all seemed to remind me of that presence. I walked through the rooms, and this time I didn't feel alone anymore. I went into my office, and everything was the same. Nothing had changed. But there's something different, a vague feeling of surveillance, as if I was no longer the owner of this space. I looked at the table, and a strange object appeared before my eyes. A silver necklace, still lying on the table. I certainly never left it there. I felt a chill rise in my body. Picking it up, I felt a slight jolt, not like electricity, but as if this object was strangely alive. Light from the window shines on the pendant, creating mobile ghosts on the surface. I looked closer and saw a faint image engraved on the pendant, strange markings that I had never noticed before. They were not a simple decorative motif, but a pattern with a deep meaning that I could not understand. I put down the necklace and decided to leave the office. But when I turned around, I noticed something strange. The window opened strangely, even though I must have closed it before. And then, in the distance, I heard a faint whisper, as if someone was calling my name. I rushed out of the building, not daring to turn back. I still hear those whispers in my head, the sound of another world, where the unexplainable awaits. And I know this isn't over, it's just begun. As I drove away from the building site, the feeling of being unable to escape the siege still prevailed. Everything inside me felt like it was being torn apart, between reason and inexplicable fear. I don't know what I'm running from. Is it the truth, or is it just my mind playing a scary show? But no matter what, I can't stop. That night, when I got home, I felt everything around me change. Ordinary noises like the wind blowing through the window, noises in the kitchen, now become strange and inexplicable. At one point, I heard light footsteps, as if someone was walking down the hallway. However, every time I turned around, I only saw empty walls and weak light from the night lamp. But one evening, as I sat in the living room, those noises rang out again. I could feel a presence in the house. Something was standing behind me, right in the darkness. I turned around and saw, right in the dim light from the night lamp, a figure rising from the darkness. Not an ordinary person, but a shadowy image, as if formed from darkness. A cold feeling spread through me. That figure seemed to have no legs, no light touched it. The shape stood motionless, and I felt the entire space shrink, choked by an invisible force. My heart was pounding in my chest. Suddenly, I heard a soft sound like a sigh, like a breeze passing by, but there was no wind. "You can't escape this place," the whisper echoed in my head. Strangely enough, I didn't hear it from that figure's mouth, but from my own mind. I can't stand it. That feeling was so strange. I didn't know if I was hearing a voice or just echoes from memories I couldn't understand. The shadow stood there for a long time, then disappeared as quickly as if it had never existed. Everything returned to silence. However, I cannot erase that image from my mind. Even though it was midnight, I couldn't sleep. I just sat still in the room, eyes wide open, looking at the empty space where that figure had stood. The next day, I decided to go back to the building again. I cannot live forever in fear. I cannot let darkness rule my life. Even though I didn't want to face the truth, I understood that I needed to understand what was going on, because otherwise, I would never be able to live in peace. When I entered the building again, the tension inside me was almost unbearable. Today, things look different, but they're getting worse. There was no longer the usual quiet, but a heavy silence, as if everything was waiting for something to happen. Every step I took echoed loudly, and I couldn't help but feel like someone was watching me. This time, I didn't just pass by empty offices. I headed to an area I had never dared to enter, the old management office where I thought no one worked anymore. That rotten wooden door creaked when I pushed it open. I walked inside, where there was only darkness, cold air and dust. Abandoned filing cabinets, old papers and damaged items litter the floor. My head started to hurt, and a heavy feeling filled my heart. I approached an old table and looked down. On the table there is an old notebook. The cover is yellowed and has traces of time. I turned the pages, and the faint words appeared before my eyes. Some pages appear to have been water-soaked, the writings of someone who is no longer here. I read a passage. There's something in the darkness. Footsteps echo in the hallway. We should never pass through this area at night. Every step in the dark is a step closer to death. I hear voices. I can't escape. A cold feeling invaded my body. This is no ordinary notebook, but a trace of the past. A past that I cannot explain. The words written in it made me unable to breathe. Everything becomes more and more clear. This is the cause of the strange phenomena I encountered. But the strange thing is, I never saw anyone leave this notebook behind. No one told me about it. I quickly closed the notebook and placed it on the table. When I turned around, I saw in the darkness a small door in the corner of the room slowly opening. A cold breeze blew, and I felt an undeniable presence. A voice rang out, this time clearer than ever. I can't leave. I turned around, but didn't see anyone. It felt like a black shadow was covering me, making me unable to move. My hands trembled, and I understood that I was facing something that I couldn't explain rationally. As I stepped back, the door gradually closed, and I realized that I was stuck in a loop that I couldn't escape from. I could only look forward, and in the darkness, the voices continued to whisper. When the door closed behind me, I couldn't turn back. A feeling of suffocation, tension, enveloped me. I didn't dare breathe loudly, as if the air in this room might crumble if I did. Everything around me became blurry, as if I was lost in a space that did not belong to me. My eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness, and I saw old objects around me. Filing cabinets, worn wooden desks, pages of paper blowing in the air, and flickering fluorescent lights on the ceiling. It was a quiet space. No one had been here for a long time, but I felt a strange life in it, as if everything was waiting for something to happen. And then, again, I heard the whisper. This time it was clearer than ever, as if someone was standing right behind me, close to my ear. I can't get out. I turned around quickly, but there was no one there, just empty space. But the feeling is not of loneliness, but of presence. Someone is near me. My heart beat faster. I felt sweat starting to break out on my forehead. My steps were uncontrolled. I backed away near the wall, looking for a way out, but there was nothing but pitch black shadows. I felt like I was lost in an eternal space, a space I could never escape from. A weak light suddenly appeared in the corner of the room. It was the light of a dim ceiling lamp, but not a normal light. That light seemed to want to expose what had been hidden for a long time. The darkness around me seemed to be receding, revealing details I had never noticed. A filing cabinet had been opened, papers scattered everywhere. I approached, my eyes fell on a torn piece of paper, and I noticed something strange. It was an old report with traces of time, blurred handwriting. Those words belonged to no one else but the soldier in the notebook I found earlier. There have been strange events happening in this building. Footsteps, whispers, but no one saw anything. The guards never left here. They said there was something waiting down below, where no one dared go. My whole body was cold. I began to understand that what I was experiencing were not just random events, but part of a longer story. A story that previous people had left these traces for me, but that no one could explain. The feeling of confusion continued to haunt me. I stepped back, and at that moment, I realized that the space around me was changing. The walls seemed to begin to move, the desks and filing cabinets seemed to come to life, and the twinkling lights above began to move in strange rhythms, as if waiting for me to do something. Footsteps echoed in the hallway, not from my side, but from the other side, from within the deep darkness. The footsteps did not stop, but seemed to be getting closer. I couldn't move, my hands clenched, and I felt a cold air enter my heart. Then I realized something that couldn't be denied. The figures I had seen in this building were not hallucinations. They can be souls, ghosts of the past, of people who have been unable to escape. And now I, like them, was trapped in this space, pulled into a loop that I had no control over. Just as I was about to turn around and run away, a loud noise rang out, like a door being slammed shut, and I felt the presence of someone standing right behind me. I turned around, and I saw Not a person, but a faint figure standing there, a dark shape, with only its eyes shining in the darkness. Those eyes stared at me, and I felt like I was drawn into them. "I can't leave, it's too late." That voice rang in my head, clear and threatening. I couldn't say anything, just stood there, eyes wide open, heart pounding. The shadow gradually came closer, and I felt my body unable to move, as if frozen in fear. Its footsteps echoed in the quiet space, but there was no contact with the ground. It walked gently without making a sound. Then suddenly, the shadow stopped, and from the darkness, another voice rang out. This time it's not a threat, but an invitation. "You're not the first. You won't be the last. But be careful, because this place never lets anyone escape." That was the moment when I clearly felt that everything I had experienced was not a coincidence. This building and the strange phenomena within it were part of a deeper story. A story that I could not fully understand, but that I was certainly drawn into. A light reflected in the glass door. I felt the cold feeling touching my palm again, and those whispers echoed in my head. Not clear, but very close. That feeling made me unable to escape, as if everything in this apartment was tying me into an invisible loop. Every night, I pull down the curtains and swear I won't look back, but then I feel a strong urge, an invisible force pulling me toward the window. Sometimes I try to convince myself that it's all just delusion, just a normal reflection of light, but every time I look back, I see that figure again. It stood behind me, like a shadow silently following my every move. Things got worse as my nightmares became clearer. Dreams aren't just strange silhouettes in the dark. They now have strange details. I saw myself in the kitchen, but it wasn't me as I always saw it, but a different version of myself, someone looking at me from the shadows. When I turned around, I didn't see anyone, but it felt like something was watching my every move. One night, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to go out. I walked into the dark hallway, my eyes looking around for some sign to explain all that was happening. But there was nothing, only eerie silence and strange sounds from behind me. At that moment, a cold air blew past, and I heard a voice, faint but clear. "I can't leave." I turned around, but there was no one. That strange shadow was once again absent, but I felt that it was always there, next to me, waiting for me to turn my back. Day after day, I couldn't escape that feeling. Everything in this apartment seems to be gradually changing, not only in shape but also in the feeling of space. Strange noises appear from the walls, unexplained marks on the floor. Every step I take in this house is no longer simple. I feel like I'm walking on a thin layer of ice, a layer that can break at any time. One night, I had to leave the house around 3 a.m. when the nightmare became unbearable. I stood on the balcony, breathing fresh air, but it felt like I was in another world, a world where everything was unreal. My eyes looked at the opposite wall, and I couldn't believe what I saw. On that wall, a faint figure began to appear, seemingly smiling at me, a smile that I cannot understand. Every time I look at it, I think I'm going crazy, but I couldn't deny that something in this apartment, in myself, was changing. And I know that I can't hide anymore.